due to the fact that there have been quite significant declines in the market. Well, that's an understatement. Yes, there haven't been such strong declines for several months and such low valuations of cryptocurrencies. Today, we'll have a little Q&A. So without further ado, let's get started. There are currently a lot of negative things happening in the market. Crypto. So I will answer those questions that directly touch on the topics that are currently relevant. And we'll update ourselves a little bit. Knowledge. So if you like this format, give a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. So the first question, is Trump the biggest insider trader in history? Well, first of all, it might seem that Trump, due to his current position, has access to many maneuvers that an average Joe wouldn't have. That's the first thing. But formally, people in high positions are not allowed to. Of course, I emphasize formally, use such information that they possess. For speculation, for setting up longs on Bitcoin or shorts, for initiating certain positions. Recently, there was even information that phones or some devices used by high-ranking individuals were being tapped. So it seems to me that even if you wanted to pass on information about specific steps to close friends or even family, which would also be risky, he has a difficult task. Is he doing it? I have no idea. I don't have a crystal ball, so it's not for me to judge. But it seems to me that from a formal legal standpoint in 2025, it's much more difficult than it used to be. A few decades ago, when you could pass something on relatively easily, and it wasn't tracked as it is now. And if, of course, such a series of longs or shorts were to occur, or any kind of play on the spot, indirectly through acquaintances with huge capital, I think that sooner or later such high effectiveness would be noted somewhere, and it could indeed lead to some disturbances. So, personally, I think not, but there are other benefits that come from his behaviors and choices. Mark, how are you gearing up for alt season this year? Well, personally, I believe it might come sooner or later. I'm still counting on it. I have a position on the spot, or longs times 2 on altcoins, which I am constantly building. The orders, which I posted all on Telegram, I wrote about, so if anyone isn't there, I warmly invite you. The link in the description to the group is free, and the code is also directed on the screen. But it's about the fact that, firstly, the cyclicality has gotten a bit messed up here. Because, usually, the post-halving year for Ethereum was very good. Now we are testing new levels and returning to the past. Let's say. That has also gotten messed up. Let's say economically, a bit politically. Somewhere out there, inflation in the US is still not fully tamed. They're wondering if the interest rates will be lowered. We're still waiting for QT, and so on. So indeed, a lot of things in the world are making this old season usually correlated with desire. Among investors, the shift towards investing in more risky assets is simply being delayed. It won't occur in the first quarter as it was estimated, as we historically assumed it might happen. So I myself am in altcoins, but I'm not heavily invested in them. Up to my ears, it's uncertain how. Currently, with these drops of around 30 to 40%, I have about 1/3 in Bitcoin, in Ethereum, and a little over 20%. I have in altcoins, and in orders waiting for altcoins to enter. This ranges from 18% to 22%. It depends on the moment. In total, the rest is in leveraged positions, which have either already entered, or are still waiting for a few orders to enter. So that's how my portfolio currently looks and its distribution. Merrick, what do you invest in outside the market? Crypto? Well, I've been saying for a long time that cryptocurrencies are not my only haven. Of course, I have a relatively large amount of capital here. I still believe in this market. Bitcoin itself is still several times above my average entry at the level of 22,000. Ethereum is below my entry because currently, after the recent purchases, on the spot market, it's probably around $1,700, roughly speaking. That's the entry point. Previously, it was at 1,900. And now, yesterday there was a rebound almost to those levels. But today we dropped again, so I'm at a nice few percent loss there. After 2 years of accumulating Ethereum, yes, roughly after 2.5 years. In total, almost, so it's not something to boast about. But in my opinion, it's a temporary moment. So, the crypto market doesn't always give back, so to speak. Other assets include, of course, gold, real estate, not only in Poland. I believe that in Poland, not everything is necessarily so exquisite and organized that all the capital would be here, also due to political actions or potential future wars. I wouldn't want to have only real estate in Poland. I also invest in watches, but that's more of a private matter. I don't think it's easily transferable. An asset, as some people say, it's easily transferable when we lower the price by 10, 20, 25%, which usually makes the investment unprofitable. Of course, gold is very liquid and transferable, whether in the form of ETFs or physical bullion. The latter is a bit harder to transport, but it's still perfectly fine. Bonds. I also invest in my own companies, and I recently started another business, which is also roughly in the media industry. For now, I'm not saying anything, but in the future, I think I'll share. But if I have leverage, In the form of human resources and the fact that I have some operational capabilities, I often prefer to simply invest money in my own projects to generate even more funds. That's natural. Only when there's a large surplus do I invest that capital in anything else. Also, as the cherry on top, I'll add that I joined two communities related to artificial intelligence and a business one, where the entry fee is 30,000 PLN per year for one, and for the other, the entry fee is in the form of various courses and so on, also just thousands of PLN monthly in this case. So I also invest in education, both mine and my team's, where there are some ongoing payments. Of course, in moments when the monthly income is lower, naturally one wonders if they could stop. Sometimes I do, and I return to these associations or groups after some time. But the point is that, in my opinion, it's worth being part of something like this if, at a certain stage, we start surrounding ourselves with people who, with just one or two tips, can positively impact our business, increase profitability by 1%, and that already solves the issue. Is the 74,000 on Bitcoin? Could that have been the bottom? I believe it could have been, mainly due to the fact that it occurred right next to the dead cross, near the moment when those moving averages crossed, which often indicated a correction. And it did indeed occur. Additionally, there was a huge black swan event in the form of those tariffs, some kind of escalation with larger stakes. Tariffs, imposed by Trump and here with China, so that's another factor. Moreover, cyclically, Bitcoin usually ended its correction around this period at about 30-odd%. Here we had about 33, so that would also indicate a near bottom. Additionally, there's the fact that we still have 6 months, HOS, which means potentially a shorter period to recover. According to cyclicality, although the cyclicality has somewhat deteriorated, as I mentioned more in the top right corner. If you go to my channel, it's the latest video. Literally, I analyzed whether cyclicality works, whether it can still be relied upon, how everything looks, so you'll find a reference there. So I personally believe there's a high chance that it was the bottom for Bitcoin, although I still allow for levels between $71 to $2,000, where we would have a nice 30-something% correction. If it went below 40%, I would start to worry that we might indeed enter a period of some temporary downer, bear market, or a phase of long consolidation, as long as it's 30-something points. Considering all the negative events happening around us, I don't think it's something tragic. On Bitcoin itself, of course, in the bull market, it can continue. You wrote about some new group for free from you. When does it start? Yes, I'm creating a KDP Premium Plus group, which is cryptocurrencies for beginners. Premium with a plus, almost like Canal Plus, but mainly it's about the fact that I have some contacts. I have a network, some people on the team. I have a network of friends. I have my own insights. And besides the fact that I conduct mentoring, which currently has closed doors, you can't join. It simply contains everything that I convey and what I share based on the information I obtain from Timo, related reports, webinars, and so on. This KDP Premium Plus is a group where you will be able to get access for free. You just need to have an account on the Bybit exchange. I will be opening such access as soon as next week. I don't know if at first it will only be, for example, for 1,000 people or 500. I'll see about that. If so, then only people who already have an account on Bybit. I will be able to add it. So if you don't have it yet, there's a link in the description in the pinned message on how to join there. In the top right corner, there's also a guide from this exchange and a playlist on how to trade correctly on my channel. Also in the description under this video. Check it out. You'll find it. There you also have links, registration information, all the guides, so check them out. It doesn't cost anything. You just need to deposit around $100 at least to keep the account active. The funds are yours. You can withdraw them at any time, and you also get a range of different bonuses, due to the fact that they have a strong position in Poland and have been promoting this exchange for years. So mainly, it's about the fact that there will be additional content in this group. In addition to what's on KDP Telegram, what's on YouTube, there will also be on-chain analyses. There will finally be trades, from leverage, from the trader I collaborate with. If he can't manage, we'll replace him. For example, you will also be able to vote him out in the future. Listen, there will be some live meetings once a year. There will be cashbacks for the best traders. Additionally, there will be tournaments with prizes for me every month. There will be various things that you haven't seen on KDP before. Simply put, in a free form. And this is also free, unless someone wants to purchase access and doesn't have an account on Molybit. Then it will cost about 2,000 PLN per year. That's why I recommend just having it, because it takes 5 or 10 minutes, and you'll have free access. I will reveal more details later. Probably next week we will start. I saw that you created a report on Ethereum. Where can I get it? You won't get it anymore, unless you reach out via email, private message, or on Instagram. Then I'll send it to you directly. But as for automation, it was in my newsletter. Every week, I just work with the guys from the team with their support, because I can't write that much content for all the groups by myself. But you know, for example, I send voice messages, gather information, and make a list. I say, listen, to be precise, give me a few tasks about this, add this, and that. And I gather it all together, aggregate it, so that in a consolidated form, like a knowledge capsule, I can analyze the most interesting topics that appear each week, the most threatening to the crypto market, and the most promising, and so on. So, in the description, you have a link to the newsletter, which is also completely free. Every week, usually on Sunday or other days of the week, if, for example, I release two, which often happens, then Sunday and Wednesday, if I manage to compile that much material. I simply send you such analyses, market reports. You have this Oitilium in front of you. I'll scroll a bit for you. And this is just a small part because I uploaded the whole thing during the mentoring session, where there were about 19 or several pages of Oitilium and its potential future, considering what has currently happened. So sign up for the newsletter to simply not miss such reports. Do you think that gold at $3,000 is already too high? In general, the tendency is that gold never has something like too high a price or a price that isn't entirely fair, because it often simply reflects and illustrates that. When people are afraid during times of crises, political turmoil, stock market crashes, or in crypto or stocks, how do you see the American market or crypto now? Hitting rock bottom, while gold is practically at an all-time high. So often, in opposition to easy money, when tough times come, gold gains the most. Last year, over 30%, and this year already nicely. It has also gained several percent, which is an above-average situation, and certainly doesn't fit within the average annual return, because gold usually does, about 8% annually, for example, sometimes 6%. Usually, in the long term, it simply indexes the value of inflation, which comes out to about zero, but there are specific periods, like now, where various cycles overlap. And simply, when we have a tendency towards uncertain grounds, in individual financial markets in different countries, I think it's worth accumulating gold, and it may turn out that by the end of next year, or in 2 to 3 years, it will cost $4,000 per ounce. In the worst-case scenario, by buying it every month, I think you'll wait a few months, a year or two, and you won't lose. The most important thing is to add regularly. The price averages out on its own, and that's it, and then we wait patiently. When should I sell my cryptocurrencies, Mark? A question from the series. When should I sell Ethereum, which I bought for $1,000, because I want to buy a house? But, in short, we know that there are a few different indicators that can indeed allow us to infer, roughly, when that will happen. At the moment, considering that the cycles have, in my opinion, gotten a bit messed up, I don't have a definitive answer for that. If I will be selling cryptocurrencies and Ethereum Bitcoin, I will inform you about it. Of course, I also run this channel afterwards. I will probably do it on Telegram, as I mentioned, due to the fact that it's the fastest, most convenient, and most dynamic. There, I don't have to edit videos, so if you're not there yet, I invite you. Information will definitely appear there. On YouTube, probably with a delay, because time is needed for editing, and often there are videos where I just have to speak quickly. And I'm not able to publish it immediately, so that's the place where I do it. But when it comes to what I consider when selling my crypto, it's definitely sentiment, and definitely waiting for another alt season to occur. I hope it will be a longer one, and then I won't want to be stingy, but I'll be selling my altcoins regularly, just like now, in November and December, which I unfortunately bought back a bit too quickly. I will also be looking at on-chain analysis to see if various indicators are overheated. We'll see what the cyclicality shows and at what point we are. How generally all markets resonate consistently with the cryptocurrency market and what condition they are in. Whether we really have a big chance that everything will soon go down. Whether the S&P 500 is at its peak. How gold, the dollar, DXY, and many other things are reacting. So if everything consistently tells me that it's time to sell, I will do it, and I will inform you about it. Is it a good time to buy Bitcoin? You know what? I personally believe that if you are buying it with a perspective of the next 6 or 9 months, then yes, it is finally a moment when it's worth buying Bitcoin even for the short term. I just think now that there is a much greater chance that Bitcoin will go from 80,000 to, for example, 110,000, reaching an all-time high. It will give us a 35 to 38% profit quickly, rather than dropping another $30,000 to 50,000 and having a correction of about another 30-something%. So personally, I think that, at the moment, there is a chance that after this correction, Bitcoin will simply bounce back towards altcoins, breaking a high. Personally, I bet on it, despite what's happening. And I'm playing on the idea that Bitcoin will reach $100-something thousand by the third quarter of this year. It may seem absurd, but stranger things have happened. 60, 80, 100% is still in play, which hopefully will also help altcoins to break out strongly. So if you're buying for the short term, then yes. If you're buying for the long term, then I think you can also buy, because it's just a correction, and then not buy anymore when we exceed $90,000 to $100,000, but wait for a potential crash, or, if it doesn't come, sell the Bitcoin and buy back cheaper in the next cycle. I earn 15,000 zlotys a month, and I have 5,000 left for investments. All in crypto, or should I do it differently? You know what? First of all, congratulations on your earnings. You're well above the average in Poland. That's first. Secondly, if you have 5,000 left, that's 33% of your monthly earnings, which is also a good result when it comes to regular investing. You probably estimated around there, and it's an approximation, but it's still very nice that you have such restraint in spending. You're able to set aside such an amount every month, so I wouldn't put everything into crypto. With 5,000 a month, after 2.5 months, you have the funds for a 1-ounce gold coin, where the spread is negligible, and it's worth buying one. So, for example, you can do it in such a way that every quarter you check what is currently the most profitable. Are cryptocurrencies currently in a correction? Has Bitcoin dropped significantly? Okay. If so, I buy Bitcoin or some cryptocurrencies this quarter with the funds I've accumulated over 2 to 3 months. If you think altcoins are coming, they're low. Or, if the American stock market has dropped, you add to that. Gold has dropped. Okay, I buy a gold coin this quarter. And it's better to look at the funds you've accumulated. A bit larger, which will allow you to purchase gold. Just in case. If you had to, if it was the best option, but simply so you could hear. After 2 to 3 months, also make a decision, because a lot changes in the markets then. And simply every quarter, you can do a self-analysis and determine what is currently most worth buying. How to make money from this damn difficult market. Cryptocurrencies, I have them. How to quit a job and be financially free. What do I dream about? Well, first of all, it's great that you have some ambitions and such an approach that you dream, because it's worth setting some goals for yourself. That's what I believe. It also helped me a bit in the past to achieve anything, where I just wanted to break free from such a routine and some monthly means that make me barely get by and live, and I don't have the means for some travels I've always thought about. But when it comes to strictly the matter of retraining as a cryptocurrency trader or a long-term investor, it doesn't work that way. Dude, even now, operating with, I assume, slightly larger funds than you. I don't think of the cryptocurrency market in the context that, okay, it's a place where I want to make money that I have and replace a full-time job. No, I have cash flow from businesses or passive income from properties I rent out, but not from the cryptocurrency market, where, first of all, the very fact of making money here in the long term is not as obvious and easy as it is now. You can see for yourselves. And what about regularly withdrawing funds every month, regardless of the market's condition, for living expenses? You would have to be a day trader and do it really spectacularly well and consistently, regularly generating profit from the entry amount, which would have to be at a minimum level, estimating 150 to 200,000 zlotys, so that you could, under decent conditions, with a really great approach to this market and a well-organized mindset, with really good optimizations of everything, be able to withdraw 5,000 zlotys per month, meaning you would be making, let's say 30-something to 40% annual ROI from day trading, which is 3 to 4% monthly. And that would actually be a spectacular result, which would be hard to maintain. So if that's how you're approaching it, well, there's your answer, but it's unlikely you'll succeed. So in short, just to add to your question, first you earn money in real life, then you invest in the cryptocurrency market or others, multiply it, and with that, you buy assets that, for example, generate passive income for you and can, in a way, replace your salary each month. Or you develop additional businesses or things that provide even greater income. Do cold wallets, like Ledger and Trezor, hold a lot of altcoins so that when alt season comes, you can transfer them there? You know, unfortunately, not entirely, because first of all, individual altcoins are on strange networks. Many larger altcoins, like Dogecoin or others, often use their own networks, like Bitcoin Cash, Ethereum Classic. These are all on their own networks, which either Ledger doesn't support, or you have to add them. They take up memory, it's complicated, difficult, and just on such a cold wallet. Paradoxically, it's not so easy to hold altcoins, so I personally recommend, if you have these outs, to keep them either in a sub-account on an exchange if you plan to sell them soon, so as not to tempt fate, for example, by losing those funds when transferring them from wallet to wallet, because there's always a greater risk then. Or simply have a warm wallet, like MetaMask, but one that you protect very well. It's a new wallet, you've verified the passwords, ensuring no one has ever stolen them from you, and you have them secured. You've checked the device to ensure there are no hacks or any other issues. You know, just Trojans that could cause someone to steal your data. Only when you are fully confident can you send them, for example, from the exchange to such a MetaMask. Do altcoins have a chance to return to prices similar to when you were buying them back? You know what? I buy them back regularly, right? In 4 tranches in total. So if you're talking about the average entry price, I'm counting on the fact that statistically, even altcoins that don't return to those levels, where I have altcoins in the top 20 mainly, I think they will likely return, right? Top 50. But even if they don't return, those few that do will simply achieve results much better than they had before. They will cover and compensate for the losses of those that didn't succeed. So that's my approach, which is why I focus on altcoins from high positions as long as the cycle potentially continues. And it continues, maybe not at its peak, but potentially it will. I believe that averaging is possible, but averaging altcoins in a bear market, especially from distant positions, is pointless because most of them will disappear from the board and be replaced by new projects in the next cycle. Which altcoin do you believe in the most? You know what? That's a question that in this cycle, in my opinion, is irrelevant because I wouldn't fall in love with projects. Often in previous cycles, there were indeed altcoins that, based on research, performed exceptionally well, but now I tend to assume otherwise. That there's no point in focusing on one or two altcoins because there are too many to hit the nail on the head. You have very slim chances of that, and it's better to buy a basket of a dozen or six proven projects at the time of a bull market's development and the potential return of alt season, which will give you an average return. One will make 30%, another will make minus 40%, but the third will make 600% or 250%. You maximize your chances of profit in a bull market rather than throwing. And hoping that luck will be on your side, that the particular altcoin we analyze together will deliver that mega result. Of course, you can invest larger proportions in something you believe in, but it's not necessarily a good idea. So at the beginning, from the alts that I own, well, I have, for example, Bitcoin, I have Dogecoin, I have Bitcoin Cash, Solana, I have a bit more. I plan to buy back XRP if it falls below $1.50. I will be buying back XRP in the form of DCA, as I have mentioned several times. So I still believe that there might be something more to it, and that it might surprise us when there's some kind of strange movement on the chart. Although more on that in the next questions. Trump will go down in history. The question is whether in a positive or negative way. It's a good question because people usually remember your last move, your last statement, what you did recently, not what you did before. I see it in myself that rarely does anyone refer, for example, to the string of successes I had in the last quarter because, for instance, I stumbled once. At some point in this cycle already this year, right? And often people look at your last move. So it depends on Trump how he ends his term, because the beginning is a reshuffle. It's this game of pawns, the clash of different powers and ideas, and it depends on him, among others, because surely he's not the only one pulling the strings, what might potentially happen by the end of the term. So I think it's too early to judge whether it will have a positive or negative impact. It also depends on for whom. It's a question of from what perspective you ask this question. Is it because you're a huge capitalist with a company in the USA? And maybe the tariffs will help your business grow locally. Or for example, you're just a small Polish player, sorry. But you know what I mean, who? For instance, buys American stocks and they've dropped by 20% in 2 months or in a month, and now you're in the red. And it depends, from what perspective you're evaluating Trump and how he will be remembered. It's usually about the masses, meaning what? People will remember as simply the majority of this world. And here, he rather needs to end his term positively towards them, not towards individual entities that want to grab even more. What do you think about the 90-day pause of the goal executed by Trump? We will have 90 days of a bull market. I think the market realized a bit today with these declines that it's not all that rosy, because every day we have a countdown. Every day over 1% of that slider. We're getting closer to the point where these pauses will simply end, right? And it will be, once again, Armageddon in terms of these tariffs. That's why it's just a postponement of a disaster in a way, and the markets have somewhat revived, right? They might revive a bit. There might be some kind of rally, but it's very hard to say what will happen. There hasn't been such an action in modern history of the United States and the world, so I personally believe that. I have nothing to fully refer to or compare it with. That's why I'm just curious myself about how it will look, and I'm not able to answer that question. Well, because there are so many variables here that just about anything can happen. Question about XRP. Do you think it will pump again in this cycle, in this bull market? I see that you're somewhat skeptical about this project, Mark. I'm not skeptical at all. I'm skeptical of people who say that XRP will have unknown results. I'm sharing with you without any nicknames. A few comments from XRP Shorts from the XRP video. See for yourselves. I just think it's a kind of cult. People worship XRP as if it's going to deliver unknown results and change their lives. But it won't be like that at all. They write, Mark, what are you talking about? That XRP won't do 200 times when Bitcoin did several thousand times, for example. But listen, the key thing, that was X years ago. Now almost everyone knows about cryptocurrencies. That's the first thing. Secondly, the market is valued at $1 trillion as a whole. At its peak, over 3. Also, XRP itself has a market capitalization of a few tens of billions of dollars. So it's not like Bitcoin grew from a few tens of millions in capitalization and did several thousand times. But we have over 100 billion, which if we multiplied by 200 or 250, it would multiply the capitalization of Bitcoin and the largest companies in the world several times over. And so on. And even gold itself, it would multiply the capitalization here many times over. So, no, I don't think that's going to happen, that XRP will cost, who knows, $100. But if it went to $5 to $10, I would be satisfied, extremely happy, and would consider it a success. Why do you diversify, Merrick, your assets outside of crypto? And 3 assets that I should have outside of the market. Crypto. First of all, you see why? At the moment when there is such a correction, These declines don't affect me as much because especially gold or real estate that I own, or even silly things like watches or even a car that I bought with cash, turned out to be a better investment than cryptocurrencies over the last 2 or 3 months. But this is variable. It's periodic, right? I also have the peace of mind knowing that not only is crypto going down, but other things are stable because they grow a bit like gold. The ability to sell these assets to purchase during a correction. Cryptocurrencies, as I recently did with Ethereum and altcoins. And there's always a slight probability that cryptocurrencies, as a relatively new creation that's been with us for 10 years, as altcoins for a few years, and as Bitcoin might, enter a multi-year period of a bear market. And people might decide that, well, we don't want to buy this anymore. You never know. It probably won't happen. Personally, I'm an enthusiast. I don't bet that it will happen, but you can't base your life on the certainty that something will happen 100%. So even if the cryptocurrency market dropped to zero, I have enough to live on. I can develop businesses, maybe not in the crypto industry then, but in any other field. I'll simply be much poorer, but not to the extreme where my quality of life drops to zero. It will still be maintained, maybe not as high as during the crypto boom, but at a relatively good level. S&P 500 and war, in a worst-case scenario, will the stock markets continue to operate? They don't have to, not necessarily. For example, when the World Trade Center event happened, the stock markets were suspended for a few days because the infrastructure was physically damaged. And people were worried about those further aspects, so the stock market was shut down. During the First World War, the stock market was even shut down for a few months, out of fear that it would finance further armaments for the Europeans. So it doesn't have to be that during some mega crisis or black swan event, the stock market will be operational. It might be on hold for a while, and we might not even be able to sell those stocks or ETFs, but this is a very rare scenario. Will Bitcoin reach its all-time high in 2025? Personally, I believe it absolutely will. Bitcoin is generally constructed in such a way that it is a self-fulfilling prophecy. People see these corrections and know that sooner or later this asset will rise. Never in history has it been the case that Bitcoin hasn't started surpassing its all-time high again, that it has fallen into a continuous bear market and declines from its all-time high for a period of at least 5 years. Its all-time high has always been surpassed, within a few years at most, which simply attests to the strength of this currency. And about the fact that it has very strong predispositions to keep pushing forward stubbornly. And it is also a response to many of the lies currently happening in financial markets, where there are such ambiguities, and governments are not entirely honest. And only gold and Bitcoin in this case, meaning something that is simply self-sufficient, serve as a complete report for people that things will be fine because Bitcoin is deflationary, as Bitcoins are also lost. More lost than there. There is an oversupply due to mining as well, which is now negligible when it comes to new supply, etc. I just believe that Bitcoin is a great answer in the long term. Let's not focus on the correction, the volatility, or that banks don't like it. Of course, they don't like it because they have their own assets on which they earn better fees. They discourage Bitcoin, etc. In the long term, Bitcoin has always proven to be something worth having and accumulating during downturns, and a good digital asset that indeed, in a few decades, perhaps everything will align in such a way that it will be worth $1 million. For example, despite the fact that inflation might be relatively low, meaning even if inflation were, let's say, over the next 15 years, our money would lose more than half its value year over year, cumulatively, applying compound interest. But Bitcoin, let's assume, from a nominal value of 90,000 now, which is the real value indexed for inflation, I don't know, $180,000 to $200,000, $1 million, which is 6 times, let's say, more than 6.5 times over 10 to 15 years, which would still be a beautiful investment, where you wouldn't earn that in any other market. Let's hope that will be the case, and that we will reach such values together here on the channel. I'm keeping my fingers crossed. I'm not planning to leave until Bitcoin reaches $1 million. Of course, I'll probably be less active during the bear market. That's the natural order of things. I will also be dealing with other topics, but I'll be here. I like this market, it interests me, and we'll see where it all leads us. So remember, it's worth diversifying. The cryptocurrency market cannot be your only beacon of hope. Potentially, from cycle to cycle, it's getting harder to earn, growth is declining, but it's still a lucrative market where, if played right, you can earn more than in others. And that's it in a nutshell. Up here is the subscription if you found this valuable. All the links to the things I talked about today are in the description regarding my mentoring because there was a question, I'm putting it on the screen for you. There might be a recruitment, maybe in May, maybe in June. If someone was waiting and didn't get a chance, they will have the opportunity to join, but more on that later. So for now, I won't talk about it here. Take care. Playlist in the description about trading in the top right corner. Guide on how to trade with leverage on the Bybit exchange. If anyone wants to try or is trading on other exchanges, you're warmly welcome.